Okay, back, and this is the second video for building the camp robber. And I'm going to, so I'm going to cover the plane, and then I'm going to do the final assembly, which is where you bring all the pieces together. So laid out right now, I've got my covering material for the wings and stabilizer. I've got all the parts ready to go. This is a piece of black tissue. You get a time bonus for having either a panel on the wing done in black, or the winglets or the tail, I think, all satisfy the rule. So I cover all three of those things, the two winglets and the vertical stabilizer in black tissue. It looks pretty nice. This is a piece of 220 grit sandpaper, and I'm going to show you how to use that to help in trimming the covering after you have it on. And of course I have my nice big scissors here. This is my favorite pair of scissors, got it from Harbor Freight. And its main attribute is its length, how long that thing is. You can do exactly what I'm going to do with the shorter scissors. I just find it easier with this long one. Let's see, I guess there's two other pieces to this whole puzzle. This is my spray booth. I'm going to set the parts in there when it's time to spray them. And I have a ridge of paper in there. I don't know if you can see that, where I can just set the parts so it's only touching the ridge and maybe the end over here, because you don't want it to lie flat in the bottom of the box, or it will stick and never come unstuck. And then maybe the star of the show. This is a can of 3M Super 77 spray adhesive. It's really the best stuff for this job. You can cover this plane using glue stick, but I find that with polyethylene, which is the covering material we're going to use, glue stick doesn't work as well. So I'm going to recommend you get a can of 3M Super 77. You can get it at Home Depot, and try to get the smaller size, I would say. The big size is more economical, but you probably won't go through a can of the stuff in half a lifetime. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is prep the covering material, and this is, I'm not going to lie to you, this is just a piece of polyethylene bag like you'd use as a trash can liner. And I start by cutting the bottom off. The bottom is where the seam is, and that just makes it easier to get at the rest of the covering material. So I'm just going to swap scissors. I think those are a little bit nicer looking. I can't remember which of the ones that work best. We'll find out. Okay, so I'm going to open up this covering material, and this stuff is nice because it's lighter than tissue, it's tougher than tissue. It's next best. It's the next lightest material commonly available to film, like a poly microfilm like you could get on some other kits, and I sometimes use it myself. But it's actually quite easy, and if you don't like this color, you can find it in other colors. It comes on rolls in your vegetable aisle. Those are the lightest kind too. And if you look around, you'll see everything is plastic bag now, which is not a good thing from an environmental standpoint, but I like to think that we're doing some good work with this. What I'm doing, I'm just cutting out a piece so that we can, actually I want to cut out three main pieces that we can use for wing stabilizer and the other wing. And I'm cutting them kind of along the folds in the material. You're going to see it doesn't really matter. These folds in little tiny creases, they do not matter. People sometimes fret about that, but they're so small relative to the the overall things that are going on with the wing that it's not a big deal. So let's see, I'm going to cut. And by the way, these cuts do not need to be precise. They just need to be, I'm trying to find a piece of material that's, maybe like that, which would be, I'm spreading it out now. I don't know if you can see that in the video, but I think you can. I'm spreading it out. I want a piece that's as big as the wing, but not, not too much bigger than the wing. And it doesn't have to be perfect, of course. So let's see, how about if I let that be covering for one wing. Come off of there, you. And I don't know if that's a bit wide enough for the other. It is. I can use this for the other wing. So there's a piece for one wing. Here's a piece for the other wing. And now let's cut a piece for the stabilizer. Let's see. Do I have a piece right here that I could use? I think so. You can cut this with a knife, but the technique is you need to have I would say a brand new X-Acto knife. And what you do is you lay it down against the table and cut it at a very shallow angle against the table. This stuff can snag, and the thinnest stuff, like you have right here, can actually tear. So it's not, there is a trade-off between the weight of it and the strength of it, as with pretty much anything. Okay, let me just make one last cut for the stabilizer, and then we'll be ready to spray the parts. Okay. And let's see, I know I'm out of the picture, or at least I think I'm out of the picture. I noticed on that other video that the motor stick was mostly out of the picture when I was showing you that, so I'll get it back in the picture, during final assembly, and you'll see what you have to see. Okay, let's see. So I'm trying to get a nice smooth piece for the stabilizer, and that looks about right. I'll cut that, kind of do a preliminary cut. Okay, now let's just set the covering stuff aside for a minute. And the first thing I want to do is I'm going to cut off these ends on each of the pieces. So I'm just going to use the scissors. There's one cut, and then I go across to the other side and snip it, and then flip it around and do the same thing on the other end. Okay, there's the, and by the way, while I'm doing this, I'm letting the part really float freely in my hand. I'm not gripping it very tightly at all. I don't want to force the scissors to, break a piece of wood while it's doing any cutting. And I have a little bit of overhang on that. I'll come back with a sanding block in a minute and fix that. And I'll do the same thing with the wings. So cut straight across so that the descending blade comes down right alongside the rib. And you'll hear me use that phrase again, the descending blade. That's the upper one that's coming down. And the reason I have the upside down is that I can have that descending blade be exactly flush with the piece of wood there. Okay, let's see if I can get this done well. And again, I'm letting the part float in my hand. I'm just sort of keeping it near to where it has to be. And then on the far side cut, where I'm doing right now, I usually do that sort of quickly. And I see how that rib came free. That's not a problem. I'll just glue that right back in. Just a second. Okay, let me finish the job by trimming these. Maybe I'll switch to my little shorter scissors. Maybe that's a little easier to control for this step. Okay, there's one. And then on the other side, just snip, and there we go. And again, don't worry if you crack something, that can all be repaired. Everything can be repaired with balsa wood. Okay, that's good there. Oops, dropped it. And then I have that guy there. Okay, I'm going to grab a sanding block, reach behind me, grab my big sanding block. This is actually fairly gritty stuff. I don't know what the grit is, but it's sort of meaningful. So I'm just sort of gently sanding these things down. Just get them smooth. Not critical really. But it's good to have. Okay, there's that. Let's see, this is the one where I have to make a little repair on that wingtip. Okay, got the glue right here. I can do this. Let's see, a little bit of glue right in there. Easy day. Make sure it's flush, and I think we're good. I'm just going to press that against there, and I bet it will set all by itself without needing the accelerator. Yeah, or I'll just let that be the last piece I cover, and it'll be ready by the time we're ready. Okay, clean up a little bit, and we're getting set for the spraying phase. Keep that handy. I probably shouldn't have all these little scraps of wood around, but get rid of them. Okay, now before I spray the part, what I want to do is I want to take this piece of covering. Now this is just, nothing special about this piece of polyethylene. I'm going to crinkle it up hard. Just crinkle the heck out of it. And you do this sometimes with film too. And what it does is it creates a whole bunch of micro crinkles, micro wrinkles. And that's actually kind of a good thing. It tends to, some say it delays the onset of a stall, keeps the airflow attached a little bit longer. And I sometimes do it, sometimes I don't. But if you do it, it causes that the material will have a nice slight little springiness to it, which I think plays well for the covered part. Now I'm smoothing it as smooth as I can. And I think that part's ready to go. Just do one last little test of it. There, that'll fit. I'm just sort of pre-checking where it's going to go. And I'm going to lay out all three of these parts right away because I think I can spray them all. I think I'll do the crinkle for every part. You can spray them all in one quick spritz and then lay them down for covering, and if you're all set to go, it goes very, very quickly. Okay, that one's nice and crinkled up, and you have to kind of work it out a little bit. And I'm sorry to include so much plastic. Those are the smallest bags I could find in volume, but you gotta have a little bit left over. Okay, there's that, and then I have this last piece here for the stabilizer. So it gets the treatment. I'm gonna crinkle it up, and almost ready to go. Okay. Now I didn't even include tissue in this kit because that 9-gram weight restriction. What I'm really worried about is somebody coming out overweight. Not somebody's plane coming out overweight, because we don't have any weight to spare on this thing. We want to get right up to 9 grams, but not one little bit over. Okay, I think I'm ready to go. I want to take a minute and get this as smooth as I possibly can before I have sticky parts. Okay, that's ready to go, and that's ready to go. We'll do the tissue on the wingtips in a minute, but first let's get the main pieces covered. Okay, let's get I'm going to take the three flying surfaces. I'm going to lay them into the. I'm just looking back here, see if you can see that. Laying the parts down, and I'm putting them on that little piece of paper, so that they are only touching in a couple of different places there. And I'm going to take this off screen while I give it a quick spritz with my 77, because I don't want to get any around. Probably a good idea to do this in a ventilated place, but when you see how little, I don't know if you can see that. I'll do it right here. Look how little spray I do. There's one piece, second piece, third piece, all done. That's all you need. Like any adhesive, most of it is solvent, I bet, but still, no need to put any excess on there. Okay, first thing, we're going to lay down the stabilizer piece. These are really sticky now, so you only get one shot at it. There you go. Okay, now you stick it down there, and I'm going to roll it onto its far side, and go kind of back and forth, and well, that'll be good. Here comes a wing. Same idea. Sometimes what I do is I set it on one edge, and oops, that's not good. Let's try that again. Set it on one edge, and then kind of let it flop over. There. Okay, there's another wing. Set that aside. And then the third wing, the second wing, which is really the third thing I'm covering, goes right like that, and that'll work. Okay, and I try to stay centered as I'm pressing on an edge. Don't kind of press first on one corner, but press kind of in the middle. And then, let me get rid of this box here. Then what I do is I like to sort of pick up the part, turn it over, and then sort of with my finger, my thumb, run all the way around, and just make sure it's clinging every single place it possibly can. All the ribs, and of course on the spars as well. Okay, so there's that one. Here's this one. This one kind of has a wrinkle in it that I don't like, but I'll live with it. It'll fly just fine. Okay. You saw how I introduced that wrinkle. It's because I didn't do a nice job setting the piece down on the covering material. You really do only get one shot. Well, that's kind of a lie. You can, this 3M77 stuff does have a little bit of working time, which means I could peel it off right now if I had to and recover it. If I did that, what I'd do is I'd peel it all the way off, get a brand new piece of covering material. Don't try to use the one that's all messed up, and then do it all over again. Spray it with some fresh glue, just a little quick spritz, and then you're ready to go. Well, let me get the stabilizer, and then I'll show you how to trim these things. Okay, that's looking pretty well, pretty nice. Okay, again, I'm just going all the way around. And but fingers on both sides, and just making sure that the covering is tacked down all the way around. And this looks pretty good. Okay, now comes the trimming. So here's my scissors, And what I'm going to do, again, the piece is upside down. The bottom is facing down toward the table. And what I'm going to do is trim straight across, and again, keep the descending blade right alongside the part there. And you see, don't worry about being too neat. Now come the long cuts. Okay, and this is a little bit dicey, but we can do it. Here's that long cut there. And what I'm doing actually is cutting way out. All the cutting is happening way out by the tip of the scissors. And you do that just because it's sort of awkward. And I'm going to show you a trick in a minute where you don't even use the scissors. You use sandpaper to do this. Works quite well. So I'm going to do this. It's okay if the part flexes a little bit while you do it there. That's a pretty good cut. It's kind of clean all the way along. Let's see, get that one there. And then finally one more long cut. And actually, just to prove the point, I'm going to use a small pair of scissors to make this nice long cut. And you can do it just fine. Just sort of go easily all the way along. This isn't a very good pair of scissors, actually, so this will be a good a good candidate piece to show you the sandpaper trick for cleaning up afterwards. And the part is flexing a little bit, but you kind of flex it backwards away from the scissors, and it works out just fine. Okay, but one thing I don't want to see is, I don't want to cut away any of the wood, for one thing. And the other thing is, I see this every year when I go to regionals, and this year I went to both state and nationals as well. But at regionals, I see it mostly, which is where a student shows up with a plane where the covering is all sort of furry, just like chunks sticking off the edges. We don't want that. So what I'm going to show you to do is take this piece of sandpaper. This is very, very new. I don't know if it's brand new, but it's just 220 grit, pretty gritty stuff. And I'm just going to lightly brush it against the leading edge a bunch of times. And while you do that, you're just weakening that stuff. And I'm not bearing down very hard at all. It's really just the weight of the sandpaper. And you can see what's happening. It's tough to see on the video, I'm sure, but all this little furry stuff can now be peeled away. And you can just do all the way down the line and maybe brace the piece a little bit with your fingers as you're doing that. And just work it and be patient. Many light strokes is what you're after. And those light strokes just sort of cut the polyethylene. And it works well on tissue paper too. This technique is a great technique. Okay, I'm just going to all the way down. Many light strokes, and it works. Okay, you can clean that up. And if you don't get it the first time, build the plane. Say, oh, I still got a thing hanging off of there. You can come back later and add more. But it's a pretty effective technique. Okay, there's the stabilizer. I think that's ready to go. Set that aside, and give me a minute while I knock out the wings here. There's one side. I think these scissors need to be sharpened, but that's okay. Oh, I got a little bit of wood. Okay. Okay, and don't force it. If it doesn't want to, if something's not willing to come free, don't try to pull it free, because you can, wrench the structure and break the wood. Let's see. There we go. All the way through there. And then the last long cut. And again, I like these long scissors, but you can do it with the short ones. That's pretty good. Set that aside, and I have one more wing to go. And then I have those the little pieces. We can't forget those, because the plane doesn't fly well without those winglets or rudder. Okay, let's see. Nice long cut there. Yeah, that didn't go very well. Let's try that again. Okay. Oops, tugged on it a little bit. And sometimes, if your scissors are in good shape, you almost don't even need to clear them in between cuts, because it'll cut right through the stuff. Let's see. Okay, get that last cut. Now, what I want to do? I'm going to show you that you can cut this entire run here just with the sandpaper. Okay, I'm just going to start many long strokes, many kind of lightweight strokes. That wasn't right. Many light strokes. And look, it just kind of comes away. And I have to Get the outer part now. Now just kind of flick it against there. And good to go. Okay, stuff does pick up a little static charge, but that's okay. Okay, so there's two wings, one stabilizer. Let me clear away this polyethylene stuff. And next we have to do the tissue. And we have these two winglets, and where did the rudder go, or the vertical stabilizer? There it is. And I'm just popping out these pieces in the middle. Those are only there, you know, I kind of removed some wood just to save some weight. Okay, so I have 3 pieces and this one piece of tissue, and this is, you know, 8 times as big as we really need. Well, that's exaggeration, isn't it? I'm just going to lay them out, make sure I have a plan for where they're going. Oops, here's one thing. We want to cover the outer part of one winglet, but actually the outer part of both winglets. So don't have them like this. You want to reverse one of them, so one would be the outer, one would be the left wingtip and one would be the right, and their outer surfaces would be covered. Doesn't really matter what side of the vertical stabilizer you cover, I don't think. Okay, so let's get in my little spray booth again. And I'm going to set these in, kind of try to lean them up in the box if you can, so that they're, you know, only touching on an edge. The amount of glue you use is minuscule on these things, so it won't really matter. It won't be down for long enough to be a problem. Reaching back to grab my stuff. Okay, shake it up, quick spritz. You know, it's plenty. 8 times as much as I really needed. Okay, so now one piece at a time. Oops, don't drop it like I did. There's one. There's the other one. I should have left a larger gap in there. That was stupid. And then I guess I'll stick this one, I guess, up in there. There's a little bit of something. Oops. Idiot. Put the sticky side down. There we go. That'll work. Okay, 3 pieces, all glued. Here, on these pieces, you definitely could use glue stick without any problem. Excuse me. Okay, let's cut out the pieces. First I do them kind of rough cut, just kind of separate them all. See if I can get through this little channel. That really was stupid, wasn't it? How close I had those together. And then, okay, so I have 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece. And you know what to do. It's just a question of, you can use the sandpaper on this if you want to do that trick, or you can just cut them. So I'm just going to cut them here. There's that. 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 Now the one place on here that is a little tricky is this cut in here, because you're cutting, you know, along a kind of a concave arc there. So I find it's easiest if you do it with just little tiny snips. Snip, 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 all the way along. Okay. And we can also clean it up with the sandpaper if we have to. Okay. Yeah. All right. No prizes for great trimming, but that'll work. Okay. Let me get the other parts. This piece, on the bottom of the stabilizer, you do want to make sure you're nice and flush, because that's a gluing surface, and you want to make sure that there's no tissue interfering with your wood-to-wood gluing surface there. Okay, cut that. Trim this. This is fun. Okay, you know, tissues, I'm not going to pretend otherwise. Tissue is easier to work with than polyethylene, but it is heavier, noticeably. I mean, it could be on a plane like this. It's probably, oh, I don't know, 3/4 of a gram difference. I've had on larger planes, it is a gram difference in weight between covering with the polyethylene and covering with the tissue. And this is reasonably light tissue. Not anything exotic, not Isaki or anything. But okay, one last little trim here in the bottom. And that's probably the hardest thing on the whole plane, is trimming this little inside arc like that. But, okay, I think that's good. maybe take the sandpaper and sand that a little bit. Okay, we're good. Okay, so everything's covered. And I'm going to clean up a little bit, and then we'll start joining wing panels together. Okay, so this comes off of here. Good. Like that. Okay. I think we're right in there. Okay, now I think I told you that earlier I was trying to wanted to experiment with a slightly different cut on the wing joiners. Where did I put them? Here they are. So here are the wing joiners. They actually serve three purposes. These wing joiners, they join the wing together. They provide, you know, the vertical alignment, you know, actually the up and down adjustment for the leading edge. And this channel carries a piece. It's like this. This is going to be the, I forget what I called it, the wing mount slider, I think. Goes right in that channel there. Okay, but first things first. I see Sally the dog wants to go out, so I better go let her out here in a minute. But the wing panels go together like this, and you'll see I'm doing this on the flat. I'm not doing this up in the air, but I want to make sure above all else that we don't introduce any downward arc in the wing. You know, it's supposed to be a flat center panel, and it looks really bad if the wing tips begin drooping. Do you want to go outside? Okay, we'll go outside. Let me pause the video.